and still involves being organized, because remember, that was a big deal. We had to stay organized. We're eating our cookies. Good, keep eating. Today we're going to talk about what's called the determinant. The determinant. So if you look at the next thing in your notes, 3A looks like this. Now, you see how they're vertical bars? So this isn't a matrix, because a matrix has what notation? Brackets, right? So if you see a bracket, that's a matrix. But if you see vertical bars, that means you have what's called a determinant. This is a determinant. And the determinant is just a number. So we're going to get equals something here. And when we evaluate it, it's super easy. We take 1 times 4, and we take 3 times 2, and we subtract them. So I multiply these 2 together, and I multiplied these 2 together, and I subtracted them. So the answer to this problem is -2. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, because it is a subtraction, it is extremely important that you go this way first. That you have to go in the right order, or you'll get the wrong answer. So this is the beginning. Start at the beginning. Go down, multiply those, and subtract them. So, can you do B? It looks like about the same thing. What will B be? 14 minus -3. So I heard somebody back there say 17, and it is 17. Hey, what do you think about the next one? It's exactly the same thing. What do you think about it? -3 minus 8. So -11. You gotta be careful with your arithmetic, but it's super easy. All right, you think you got the hang of that? Because look at the next one. The next one is bigger. And so it has a little bit more work involved with it. Notice, by the way, if this were a matrix, what would be his dimensions? 2 by 2, so in other words, he's square. If this were a matrix, what would be his dimensions? 3 by 3. You can only do determinants if the matrix is square. Okay, so if it's one of those 2 by 3s or something, you can't do the determinant. You can only do the determinant if the matrix is square. All right, now to do a 3 by 3, which is the biggest ones we're going to do by hand. You can do 4 by 4s and 5 by 5s, but they have a different procedure and they take a long time. So we're just going to do this. This is as big as they get. Take the first 2 columns and copy them down right outside your determinant. So when I say copy the first 2 columns, I mean copy this set of numbers right here, and then this set of numbers right here. Sometimes when we copy, we forget the negatives. Don't forget the negatives, they're important. So copy the column, this column here, and this column here, exactly as they appear in the determinant. Okay? Now, we're going to start right here, which is where we started before, but now we're going to multiply all of these numbers together. So you are going to multiply all of those together. What do you get when you multiply 1 times -1 times 1? -1. Write it down. Now step over and multiply all of these together. What do we get? we get 6. Okay? And then, get another one. Rotation lines. If anybody over there is cold, you can close those windows. Hollis had to sub for me because I had some NHS stuff this morning, and she got hot, so she opened the windows. If you're cold over there, you can turn them off. Okay, so we multiply these together, we got -1, and then we multiply these together and got 6, right? Now we're going to multiply these together and we get 0. Now, I'm kind of out of diagonals to multiply, so I'm going to add them up. Add those up. Add them up. And I got 5. You're only half done, so hang on. You with me so far? Now we're going to turn around and we're going to go the other direction. So we're going to multiply these together.
Did someone call student services?
I did, Mrs. Magruder. This is Mrs. Ford. Is there a SET team member down there?
I'm checking. Yes, Mrs. Heron is here.
Would you ask her to come up to 40, what's this room? 43, 44?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. So now I'm going to multiply these together and I get 0. And then I'm going to multiply these together and I get -6. And I'm going to multiply these together and I get another 0. Would you agree with that? So now I'm going to add those up and I get -6. All right, I want you to think about what you did over here with these really easy ones. You got this diagonal, and you got this diagonal, and then you subtracted them. So we have a total diagonal in this direction that's 5. We have a total diagonal in this direction that's -6. What do you think I'm going to do with these two numbers? I'm going to subtract them. So it's 5 minus -6. So the determinant of that matrix is 11. So it's these minus these. When it's a little matrix, it's only one multiplication minus this multiplication. But when it's a bigger one, you have to do all of these and then minus all of these. All right, let's see if you figured that out. Let's try the next one and see what you come up with. So 3, 2, 1, 1, 4, 0, -2, 1, 3. All right, so what do we need to do first? See if you can figure that out based on what we did here. See if you can figure it out. Michael, I need you to step out, please, for Mrs. Heron. Okay, Did you remember that we copied the first two columns?
Yeah.
Did you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you remember that we're going to multiply on this diagonal? And we're gonna get what? What are we gonna get when we multiply? 36? And then you step over and you multiply on this diagonal and you get 0. And you get this diagonal and you get 1. And then you add those up. This is an add. You want the total diagonal. So the total is 37. Agreed?
Yep.
Then you turn around and you do exactly the same thing in the other direction. So we're going to go this way. So that will give us -8. Remember, you're multiplying. Okay? When you go this way, you're multiplying. So multiply, that would give us 0. And multiply, that would give us 6. So total them up, you need the total, that would be -2. Now here's what you can't forget. What do? You have your downs and you have your ups. What do you do with those two numbers? Subtract. That's a subtract. So 37 minus -2 is 39. The value of that determinant is 39. All right, would you try the next one? There's one more. It's exactly the same. Would you get all the way through it and see if you can all come up with the same answer? Including me. Oh gosh, it's so easy to make mistakes with this, so I'm not confident at all in my answer.
I got -16. Yes.
If you're not there yet, keep going, see if you get -16 also. Everybody got -16? What are you doing back there?
I'm sorry.
Well, let's put it in our backpack. You know, we don't use the phone. Okay. Any question about that? We're okay with the determinant. All right, we have one more thing to learn, and then we're gonna get our calculators back out, and then we're gonna practice for a little quiz we're gonna have next time we have class. We have one more thing to add to our list of stuff we know how to do. Part 4 says, find this. Does anybody remember what that notation means? Inverse. We're finding the inverse. Okay? By the way, remember last time we were together, we saw how our calculator would multiply matrices?
Yeah.
Your calculator will also find the determinant, and it will also find the inverse. Plus it'll do tons more things. But these are the things we're learning how to do by hand, but we'll also practice it on the calculator. All right, we're gonna find the inverse. It's a 2-step process, okay? 2 steps. Write that down over to the side. 2 steps. Because you need to remember both steps if you're going to get the right answer. The first step is find the determinant. Well, you know how to do that. This is a little one. Remember how we find the determinant of a little one? We just multiply, and we multiply, and we subtract. So 5 minus -2. I got 7 for my determinant. Everybody remember that's the first thing we did today. So 5 minus -2. Okay? Now, second thing is you build a new matrix. Now, the new matrix is easy to build, but you have to kind of just remember the rules for it. Look where I'm pointing. Look at these 2 numbers where I'm pointing. Switch positions. So flip-flop them. So 5 and 1. Now, I'm not sure how you want to write that in your notes, but somehow you have to remember that these 2 that I'm pointing at switch spots. So you switch spots for these 2. These 2, you simply change their signs. So this is a negative, so you make it a positive. This is a positive, so you make it a negative. So for these 2 right here, these 2 numbers, if they're positive, you make them negative. If they're negative, you make them positive. But you leave them where they are. So the 2 stays put, it just becomes negative. Okay? Now, take your new matrix. I guess technically there's 3 steps, because now I have to put these 2 together. Take your new matrix and divide every number in it by the determinant. So put them all over 7. And that is your inverse. Your inverse is almost always going to be full of fractions, because you're always going to take this new matrix and divide it by that number. So don't be alarmed, you got a matrix full of fractions. And that's all there is to it. So let's try the next one.
Was that matrix?
That's your answer, yep. That's your answer. All right, so first thing we do is find the determinant. So what's the determinant of this matrix? Multiply, multiply, and subtract. So we get 4 minus 0. So this determinant is 4. Now we're going to build our new matrix. I might make it a little bit bigger since I'm going to be dividing by 4. All right, so here's my new matrix. Now remember, these 2 get flip-flopped. So 4 goes here and 1 goes here. These 2 numbers right here get flip-flopped. So this one moves up here and this one moves down here. And then what happens to the other 2? They change sign. So 0 is just 0. You know, there's nothing to do with 0. And then -3 becomes +3. And then I simply take each one of these numbers and divide it by 4. Now, when I did that before, nothing simplified. Here we can do some simplifying, so we should. So we have 4 over 4, 3 over 4, 0 over 4, which is just 0, and then 1 over 4. And there's your inverse. That's the answer to the question.
But,
Yep.
like, on a, like, for the test, if we forget to simplify, do we?
You'll
like,
lose some
get-
points.
Okay,
I mean, it's partial credit, obviously, because this is the right answer, it
Yeah.
just isn't cleaned up.
okay.
So it's like, simplify your fractions. And sometimes, Ethan, they don't simplify, like this one didn't.
Yeah, that would.
Okay, one more. Try this one. See if you can follow those steps and find the inverse for problem C. Did anybody get the determinant yet? Anybody get the determinant for this guy? I heard 10, and I think that's right, because it'll be 6 minus -4. Is that okay? No question about that? All right. Now I'm going to build this new matrix. These two switch, right? So that's going to be 3 and 2. And these two, if they're positive, they become negative, and if they're negative, they become positive. But you don't move the numbers. These two numbers actually move. These two numbers don't move, just their signs change. Does that new matrix look okay to everybody? That matrix, by the way, has a name. It's called the adjoint, but you don't need to know that. Just, it's a new matrix. Now, what do I do to finish up? Divide all of these numbers by 10, by the determinant. And if they simplify, I should simplify them. So 3/10 does not, 1/10 does not. But what about 4/10? -2/5, and 2/10 is 1/5. And that is your inverse. This is the answer to the question right here.
We have to say that equals.
No, I just want you to know that's the answer to the question. Your job was to find A inverse, and you did. Okay, one more. One more, and then we're gonna do some calculator and practice on for a quiz. All right, so go ahead and get started.
Is the quiz gonna be 7-1, 7-2?
Mhm. Yep. Now I want you to think about this problem for a second. It's a little bit weird. What did you get for your determinant? Okay, now wait. Yes, you're right. Does that alarm you in any way? Now think about, what do you eventually do with the determinant? Wait, yes. Can you do that? Can you divide by 0? So you can go ahead and find your new matrix and all that, but there's really no point in it, because if that determinant is 0, you're going to be dividing all of these numbers by 0, and it isn't going to work. So what's the answer to the question? No inverse. No inverse. If the determinant is 0, you get no inverse, because when you start dividing by 0, you get a bunch of undefineds. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. All right, let's get our calculator out. We're gonna do a couple of things on the calculator, and then we're gonna practice for a quiz. Do I see you Friday? Well, I'm supposed to see you Friday. I hope I see you Friday, because that's the day our quiz is. And if I don't see you Friday to take the quiz, then you'll have to come in Monday morning, right? And take it. So just be aware, you all heard me say, if you don't take it tomorrow, or Friday, you're going to take it on Monday. Plan accordingly. All right. So, would you all look at problem 3F? We're going to do this on our calculator now. Everybody look at problem 3F. We already know the answer. I didn't write it down. You did, I hope. Problem 3F. What was that determinant? Negative 16, right? Okay, so just remember that, because now we're going to do it on our calculator, and we're going to see that we get the same answer. All right, so everybody's got a calculator out?
Where are we at?
We're going to do problem 3F in our notes. Now, we already did it by hand. We're going to do it now with the calculator. We got negative 16 when we did it by hand. We're not going into the next section. We're doing what we just learned how to do on the calculator, and then we're going to practice the quiz. We're not moving ahead today. We'll do that Friday. It will be on video, in case you're not here. Okay? Yeah. You guys think you're so sneaky. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, Tay, you'll be here Friday.
I'll be here at 1. Might have to leave.
Oh, you have to leave at 1?
Yeah.
But you'll be in school. I think you have to be in school to play the game.
I know,
No,
I
well,
love
it's
those.
practice, not games, practice.
Oh, because the game's not till Saturday.
Yeah.
Ah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, whatever. Whoever's here, I got to video it anyway, so if no one's here, I'll just video it to myself. All right, here we go. So, everybody's on, got a calculator turned on, right? I want to see a calculator in everybody's hand. Ethan, you got a calculator?
Yes.
Olivia, Michael, everybody? There is a calculator in everybody's hand. Okay, well, what are you doing? All right, so second matrix. Now, we did that the other day, so remember your matrix button is right there in the first column, second matrix. Okay? Now, we're gonna put in the 3F. We're gonna put in that matrix, that determinant. So I need you to click over to edit and hit enter. Now, the old matrix is still in there. Do not be alarmed. You're just gonna type right over stuff. Okay, that's how we do it. It's no big deal. 3F. What are the dimensions of it? 3 by 3. So 3, enter, 3, enter. So now you have 9 spots set up. Fill them with the numbers in 3F. So 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter. 4, negative 3, 2, negative 2, 1, 0. Got it in? Now, anybody remember what we do next once we get all the numbers in? Second quit. So now, second quit, right here in the top row. Second quit. Because we need to get out of that. Okay, now we're going to go back in. So second matrix. Okay, now here's where things get different. We're going to find the determinant of the matrix. So up at the top, click over to math. And then do you see that the very first option in the math thing is the DET? Mm-hmm. Press enter. And now on your home screen, it says DET. So it's asking, okay, I'm gonna find the determinant, where am I gonna find the determinant of? Second matrix, enter. When you entered those numbers, we didn't talk about it, but you put them in as A, matrix A. So we're finding the determinant of A, press enter. And up should pop negative 16, right? Negative 16. That is so cool. Okay? All right, so that's how we find a determinant. Now, oh, I erased it, but you should have the answer to, what was the answer to 1A? I know it was over 7. What were the numbers over 7?
Oh, 4A?
Yeah, 4A.
It is 5 over 7, negative 2 over 7, 1 over 7, 1.
All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do problem 4A on the calculator. We know this is the answer, we already did it, but we're gonna check that on our calculator. Okay, so now I have to put 4A in. Now I need to put the matrix 1, 2, negative 1, 5. That's the matrix that's going into the calculator. Okay, so second matrix, enter. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Second matrix, edit, enter. Now, how big is the new matrix that I'm putting in? So 2, enter, 2, enter. Type them right over the ones you had. So we're gonna put in 1, 2, negative 1, 5, enter. Got it? What do I do once I get that last number in and I press enter? Second quit. Now, this problem, we are finding the inverse. This is what we're finding in this problem. That should be the answer right there. So what I want you to do is go back into second matrix and hit enter. Now, does your screen say A, matrix A?
Yeah.
You want to put this little thing on it. So that little button is actually the matrix button. If you don't second it, see how it says X to the negative first? Press that. And that will put the negative 1 on your A. Did it happen for you?
Yeah.
It's the same button you use for matrix, but you don't second it. Just hit that button. It says X, negative 1. Just hit it. And then enter. Now, did you get a bunch of decimals? Yeah. So I want you to press math. Look where I'm pointing, the key that says math. First thing it says is fraction. So we're gonna fraction it. So just hit enter, enter, and it will pull up the fractions for you. Quit looking at the dog, I'm bored.
He walked in there with a hot section.
Sure. I mean, I know it's a dog, what are we doing with the dog?
Psych class.
Because
I'm studying learning.
He
He also told me math is his favorite subject.
well, then he's my favorite
So
dog.
if we can fit in, that'd be great.
He's my favorite dog. Is he allowed to have cookies? Well, we have leftover.
Yeah. He didn't eat his treats when I tried to get him in psych class, though, so he might be nervous.
Oh, poor thing. And I don't want to upset his stomach.
Yeah, he's okay.
Well, we're glad he's here.
Me too.
Did everybody get these fractions on your calculator? Okay, so now we have practiced multiplying matrices, finding determinants, and doing inverses on our calculator. Okay, now what we're gonna do is practice for our quiz that we're taking when I see you again. So I need you to get out a sheet of paper. So get out a sheet of paper. Please. Everybody. And what I am about to do is what we always do. We're going to practice exactly the kinds of problems that are on the quiz, right? Regardless of whether I see you Friday or not, there's a couple days in there. So you're gonna wanna be reminded of what this quiz is over. It will be a no calculator quiz. The next quiz we have will be a calculator quiz. This one is no calculator. Okay, so here you go. This is what we're gonna have to do on our quiz. I'm gonna start at the top of the page. There will be written some matrices. So I'm just gonna make up some matrices just like they'll be on your quiz. And these are just random. Yeah, move that one because I know it's underneath it, somebody can't see it. Okay, so when you get your quiz paper, it will have a bunch of these like this across the top. And then it will ask you some questions about it. So for example, potential quiz question might be, ooh, this is from last time. Anybody remember what that means? Kai?
Row 2, column 3.
Of
B.
Of matrix B, exactly. So we go to matrix B, row 2, column 3. So what number, this is the entry, the number. What number is in matrix B, row 2, column 3? 1. Right here. Any question about that? Okay. Another thing you might have to do is something like this. What does that mean? What'd you say, Avery? That means take 2 times every number inside of B. So that's easy. Take 2 times like distributive. So negative 2, 2, 0, 6, 4, 2. Agreed? All right, another thing you might have to do is something like this. So we're going to take matrix A, which is 1, 2, 3, negative 4, and we're going to subtract 2 times D. So that'll be negative 2, 2, 8, 4. Everybody okay with step 1 there?
Yep.
A minus 2D. Now, how do we actually subtract then? 1 minus negative 2. 1 minus negative 2 would be 3. 2 minus 2 is 0. 3 minus 8, negative 5. And negative 4 minus 4, negative 8. Good, not 0, it's negative 4 minus 4. So it's negative 8. Now, anybody have a question about that? That was a doable problem. But if I ask you to do A minus 2C, you can't do it. That would be a can't do. You could write can't do, you could put an empty set, write impossible, indicates somehow that it's not doable. And why isn't it doable? You cannot add or subtract unless the matrices are the same exact size dimensions, yeah. Okay? Speaking of dimensions, that could be a quiz question too. What are the dimensions of B? How many rows? 2. How many columns? 3. So it's a 2 by 3. Alright, I gotta erase some of my problems. Now, these may or may not all be on your quiz. These are potential. This is the pool. Alright, so you need to know how to do all this. Everybody okay so far with these 5? Okay. The next possible question, I guess it would be number 6, is A times B. A times B. Now, that means 1, 2, 3, negative 4 times negative 1, 1, 0, 3, 2, 1. Is this possible? The dimensions here are 2 by 2, 2 by 2. You told me already the dimensions here are 2 by 3. And the rule for multiplication is those match. And the answer matrix will be the outsides, which is 2 by 3. So the answer matrix has to be a 2 by 3. Now, any question about that? Okay, now we gotta start doing it. See this guy right here? Row 1, column 1. So I'm gonna multiply the numbers in row 1 by the numbers in column 1. Remember this from last time? So we write down row 1, and next to it we write column 1, and you multiply and add. It can get confusing because sometimes we subtract, but not when we multiply. When we multiply, we add. So that first number is a 5. You good? I'll do one more and then you're gonna fill in the rest. I'm gonna come over here now, so I'm in row 1, but now I'm column 2. So I write down my row, and I write down my column, and I'm gonna add them. So that is another 5. Again, total randomness, we saw that yesterday. All right, fill in the rest. See if you can remember how to fill in the rest. Roxy? How did I get what? This one? Row 1, 1, 2. And column 2, 1, which happens to also be 1, 2. You gotta pay attention to what blank you're filling in. You use that row and that column. Anybody get a 2 right here?
Yes.
And what's that? That's gonna be negative 15. Negative 5. And negative 4. Now, I don't know, did I do that right?
Yeah.
Any question about that? All right, just a couple more questions. Next one, actually 3 more, I think. 7, question 7 could be find the determinant of A. So determinant, that's the thing with the vertical bars that we just talked about today. So we have 1, 2, 3, negative 4, and we're gonna find the determinant. Remember what to do? We multiply here and get negative 4. We multiply here and get 6. And then what do we do with those two numbers? Subtract. So the answer is negative 10. A times C. We're back to multiplication,
Oh,
because I forgot to do it last time. A times C. Foster says you can't do it. Why can't you do it? It's a 2 by 2 times a 3 by 3. Can those multiply? No, so that's an empty set. Now this is a trick one to see who was paying attention. This says find the determinant of this matrix. Find the determinant of that matrix. What do you think? You can't do it, because what did I tell you about finding determinants? The matrix has to be square. If it's not square, here it's on my desk to keep the crumbs out of it. If it's not square, you can't do the determinant. So guys, the determinants you need to know how to do are 2 by 2, which you did one already, and we're getting ready to do a 3 by 3, and anything else we're doing on our calculator. But if they're not square, even your calculator can't do them. They've got to be square. You hearing me? Okay. All right, let's find the determinant of C. We practiced this today. Do you remember? Do you remember what you're supposed to do? Gabe, do you remember? This is what we did earlier today. Do you remember?
You take the first column.
Actually, the first two columns.
First two columns.
So 1, 0, 3, and negative 1, 1, 2.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Copy those two columns and make sure you're copying them in order, first and second. Right now, what do? Now we start multiplying. That's right, Chloe. So we're going to multiply here and get negative 1. And we're going to multiply here carefully and get negative 12. And then this one we get 0. Then we total those up. So we need to do these 3 diagonals and add them up. Ethan, did I make a mistake?
No, never mind. No, I did. Sorry. I had to see the negative on the bottom right. I thought that was positive. You're correct. Yeah, I did see that negative. I'm done.
All right, easy to do, very easy. It's so easy to make a mistake, so you gotta be very careful. All right, then we go the other way. That's a 0. This is an 8. And this is another 0. Everybody get 8 for those diagonals total? So now what do? I've got a negative 13 and an 8. What do I do with them? Subtract. So negative 13 minus 8 is negative 21. The answer is negative 21. Wait, we got one more. So there's, I guess, 11 potential quiz questions.
Can you do it the other way as well?
Order has to be that way. So Ethan, it's always I call it down and up. There's always this minus this.
Oh, I'm sorry for the final equation.
Yes, it has to be the downs, which is negative 13 minus the ups.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
All right, the last potential question is the last thing we talked about today. So let's find, oops, I erased D, so we'll use A. Let's find A inverse. The inverse of A. All right, who remembers the steps to this? Very, very procedural. You have to do steps. What do we do first? Find the determinant. I think we may have already found the determinant, but let's do it again. The determinant is negative 4 minus 6 or negative 10. Okay, then what? Who remembers? We make our new matrix, and we make it by going back to the original and switching these two. So negative 4 here and 1 here. Everybody see what I did? These two switched. And then these guys stay right where they are, but if they're positive, they become negative, and if they're negative, they become positive. In other words, I change their signs. And then what? Put all of these numbers over negative 10. And then I simplify anything that simplifies. So negative 4 over negative 10, 2/5. Negative 2 over negative 10, 1/5. Now, 3/10 doesn't reduce, but it's negative over negative, so we're going to make it positive 3/10 and negative 1/10. And that is your inverse. Okay? Is everybody clear what's on this quiz? All right, you might want to look at that again and practice before you take the quiz. Homework 6, this is 7. Homework 7-2 is due on Friday. Homework 7-2 is due on Friday because we finished that today. Next class, we'll start heavy duty on the calculator stuff after we take our quiz.